Um, that was a huge milestone. In other words, it took 10,000 years, 10,000 years essentially, for us, or you can even put it this way, all of human history until 1800 to reach the first billion. So we're going to add to this. You see, it gets scary from here. That's where we are right now. So all of human history until 1800 to reach 1 billion. 130 years later, in 1930, we hit our second billion. 30 years later after that, 3 billion. Now we're at, kind of scary, 15 years later. 12 years later. 12 more years later. 6 billion people by 1999. And guess what? October 29th of 2011 is when we estimate we hit 7 billion people on the planet. That's incredible. Now, some of you were probably born right around, I'm guessing maybe 1990-ish, somewhere around there, somewhere between 1985 and 1990. That means in the time that you have been alive, 2 billion people have been added to this planet. 2 billion. That's very frightening. And so when you are having a conversation with your grandmother and your grandmother is telling you, uh, listen to me, Sonny, when I was your age, I didn't worry about such things, and I don't know why you're spending so much time worrying about the planet and living sustainably and all that. You can remind her that when she was your age, the planet had half as many people. So this is not something that has accumulated over thousands of years. This population growth, especially the incredible growth just in the last 30 or 40 years, is unprecedented in history. So you might ask yourself, well, where are we going? Well, the estimates put us at about 8 billion by 2025. How many of you plan to be around in 2025? Hopefully all of you, right? So in not that long of a time, by the time you guys are having children and thinking about these things, there's going to be another billion people on the planet for your offspring to compete with. So the question is, can we keep growing this way? And what can possibly happen? I mean, I want you to think about growth equations now. I want you to think about exponential growth. I want you to think about logistic growth. What is the carrying capacity? If we are at the carrying capacity, what does that mean for population growth? If we are way over the carrying capacity, what does that mean for population growth? The answer is no, we cannot keep growing this way. Last time I checked, the Earth is not getting any bigger. Resources are not increasing at this same rate. And so the ultimate conclusion is some sort of a crash, or let's say some sort of a population correction. Well, has that actually ever happened? I mean, have we ever had human population crashes? Well, of course, it already has happened. Let me give you an example. These are not global crashes, but these are certainly local crashes. This is Rapa Nui. And Rapa Nui is better known as Easter Island. And this is where I kind of want to tell you a little bit of a story. This is kind of a picture of Rapa Nui. And look at that, nice and lush, nice and tropical, nice variety of trees. And here's the problem, though. Easter Island was a community that survived for hundreds and hundreds of years out in the middle of the Pacific. But as the population began to increase in size and become more sophisticated, remember the island is not increasing in size, it's staying the same. And so you've got tribal wars, religious superstitions, habitat destruction, famine, disease, all of these things which become intensified the bigger the population gets on a small island. Okay, so I lied a little bit. That's not a picture of Rapa Nui. That's not Easter Island. That's actually another tropical island. This is what Rapa Nui looks like today. There isn't a single tree over 50 years of age anywhere on the island. Um, as part of their religious superstition, realizing that their resources were getting scarce, they essentially prayed to their gods to try and make things better for them. So they actually cut down every remaining tree on the island to use them as log rollers so that they could set up their moai statues, which are these guys here. They set them all up all over the hillside, looking out to the ocean to try and appease the gods, who must obviously have been forsaking them, for why else would their resources have dried up? The thought that perhaps they were the ones that were driving the resources to oblivion, maybe it occurred to them, maybe it didn't occur to them, who knows. But anyway, this is what Easter Island is like today. It's literally a wasteland. Interesting place to visit, but biologically it's a little bit of a wasteland. How do we know that it was lush and tropical? Well, because we find the seed evidence everywhere. Evidence of a huge diversity of seeds locked up in soils and sediments that have been sequestered for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, 7 billion people. Wow. What kind of an effect on the environment or on our ecosystem could 7 billion people possibly have? Well, obviously, we're going to get into this a little later, as you probably have guessed. Food, how about this one? Humans occupy only 17% of Earth's surface. Only 4% of that is actually farmable. Now, is the area of the planet that we can occupy increasing also? No, it's not. It's staying the same, and yet population sizes are growing, and the amount of farmable land is also not growing. It's staying the same. This is going to have an impact on natural resources, including wood, land, water, space, you name it. There are going to be energy issues, and there's also going to be waste management issues. These are all issues that we're going to get into in a few weeks. But I just wanted to entice you with that. Now, another issue that we humans are facing is, and it's disproportionate, by the way, the effect that this is going to have on human populations. It is not going to be even, at least not initially. Populations are not evenly. The demographics of those populations are not even. So let's start first with the chart that I'm showing you here on the left, where it says Sweden here. Sweden has a relatively even age structure, very nice age structure, because they do not disproportionately have one group over another. There's a nice even mix here, so that the number of people down here that were just born, who are going to eventually age, is at least close to the number of people that are of working age, which is more or less the same as the number of people who are at retirement age. Okay? This is a stable population. Sweden has a stable population. In Kenya, on the other hand, in Kenya, because of many, many, many factors, which we will get into later, they have a skewed age distribution. They have a far greater number of people at the bottom here who are not yet of working age, all of whom rely on the working capacity of the middle-aged people, who, by the way, there are far fewer. And because this is a stressed population, very few of them actually make it to old age. So this here is the sign of a population that is in crisis. So what does this mean? This means that this big bulk of people that is between 0 years of age and, let's say, 19 to 24 years of age, that's everybody right here, they're all going to start having babies in the next generation, which means they are going to be contributing to an even larger pool at the bottom. And unless there is some level of reproductive control, this population is going to double and grow out of control within a matter of 35 years. So that's rather frightening. And how does it look right now as far as which countries are in the lead? I threw down this website down here for you to check out if you're ever interested. But this is the current breakdown as of the 2010 census. China is still in the lead with 1,300,000,000 people. But India is catching up at 1 billion, essentially 200 million people. Um, and China has implemented some pretty interesting population control mechanisms, right? So the one child rule, they thought that was going to be the solution, and it appears to have had its intended outcome, although they also had some unintended ones too. Like for the fact that since you have no brothers and sisters, the family structure in Chinese communities is essentially diminishing. Okay, India also implemented population controls, but it was far less effective. Why is that? Well, partly because India is a democracy, and China, being a communist country, when the government makes a mandate, people just have to follow it or they go to jail. So it was more successful in China because of that. The thing that I think is most frightening here is that oftentimes we point to China and India and we cite them as our population problem. But if you look at all industrialized nations, nations that have wealth and income, the country that has the highest birth rate, or the highest growth rate, I should say, not birth rate necessarily, but growth rate, is the United States. We actually have the highest growth rate of any industrialized nation. So we're sitting here at over 300 million people, and so it makes it difficult to dictate to the rest of the world when we are also part of that population boom. And so as of yesterday, that was where our population was at. We were over 7,100,000,000. 7,100,000,000. That was about where we were at. Is this number accurate? Well, probably not to the single individual person, but it is accurate probably to within a billion individuals. I'm sorry, to within a million individuals. So where do we see this going? Well, perhaps by 2050, we know that India is going to be overtaking China. We just know that's going to happen, and they're going to far surpass what what China's population is today of 1.3 billion. India's going to be at 1.6, and China will probably slow it up, but they're still going to show some level of growth. The United States, on the other hand, is going to show a huge percentage of growth, going from just over 300 million to 420 million. These are predictions, so obviously you take this with a grain of salt, but if things do not change, then this is probably a pretty good estimate. Okay, but we're going to come back to human population impacts and effects, but it was obvious to tie it in here to a study of population dynamics. So this material here will be on the midterm, so make sure that you take a look at it, and I will see you all in class.